At $200, a Super Nintendo setup costs twice as much as the old system. For the money, the company promises better pictures, sound, and adventure. Now you're playing with power, superpower. You're the king, I tell you! The king!
Only for Super NES.
Only on Super NES.
You're listening to the SNES podcast with your host, Soulblazer.
Hello, everybody. This is the Super NES podcast, episode number 262. These are your hosts. I'm Greg. He is Joe.
Hello.
And once again, we have a special treat for you here. Not only are we recording this episode a little bit sooner than we usually do to try to get back on the schedule because of missed time, but we're doing another episode in which we're covering 4 games in one for your listening pleasure here. So last time we were doing this year, minor spoiler, but since all these games are connected, it again just made sense to cover all of them at once. Yeah. So we are covering this time all the games that came on Super NES connected to the Simpsons universe. And I do say universe because some of these games are very loosely connected to the Simpsons, to Simpsons in various ways, which we'll get into more as we talk about the individual games. But one of these games, spoiler, wasn't even a Simpsons game to begin with.
Yeah, I found that out too.
So universe I think is the appropriate setting to stay on here. So we'll talk about our experiences like each game, going to it as we go into each game. But I do want to say a little bit about the overall universe as a preference. I think everybody listening to this podcast knows at least what Simpsons is, even if they haven't really watched it. It is such a cultural milestone in Western society these days. And apparently also in Asia, like what I understand. I mean, Simpsons. I was told last year that Western animation shows like Simpsons, The King of the Hill, and South Park are actually very popular in Japan, for example. So. I think there is a universal appeal to this show and the games. But obviously it's more of a Western idea. So I like The Simpsons. I'm not a religious watcher. I don't watch every week. It's more of a it's more a take it or leave it thing for me. It's like I'll watch it if it's something else on and I'm just like and I just watch something on the background, or I'll watch it if there's a theme or a guest star on it who I'm really interested about. So I've seen a good amount of episodes over the years, but spoiler, I'm not the most dedicated Simpson historian out there. So I'm sure there will be references, deep jokes, whatever these games reference that go over my head, be that I don't have the familiarity with the characters, or with the universe to that degree. Joe, what about you? How would you say your overall Simpsons experience is?
Well, I think like most people our age, Simpsons was huge in the 90s, so that was where I was glued to the TV watching The Simpsons every week. Once I, graduated high school and kind of entered adulthood, other things took precedence and The Simpsons kind of dropped off. But that being said, The Simpsons are one of those shows, like, you can just pop it on and enjoy it, and with the ability to have now Disney Plus and whatnot, it's easy to go back and watch some of those episodes. But yeah, man, I remember Bartmania. Bartmania was everywhere, not just in video games.
Yeah, these games came out during the early 90s when Bartmania was at its peak. Definitely Simpsons was at its peak during that time period. Because Simpsons originally came out in 1989.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by 91, Bart had like the number one single in the USA for like a week or two with Do the Bartman. Like, that's crazy. A cartoon character had the number one like hit song. But that you had to be there. That's how I explain it to people. Like, you just had to be there. Right.
So I agree with you. So I know that so I know a lot of people say the 90s was the golden age of Simpsons. Simpsons, I agree with that. I do feel, however, that Simpsons are kind of like Saturday Night Live in the sense that there are great episodes made. People just don't like people just don't like to talk about them for whatever reason. It's just easy to focus upon the bad episodes, quote unquote, than focus upon the fact that there is occasionally still some good stuff made. So, should the show be killed by now? Probably. I mean, last year Fox announced there was a new contract in place that keeps the show on the air until 2029. So I think at that point it'll be killed. Which 40 years, that's a hell of a long run for a TV show.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, there's very few TV shows that have been on for that long or longer than that. So mad respect to Simpsons. I'm not even sure. Yeah. I don't even know what the total episode count is going to be at that point, because it's like I haven't looked it up to see how many episodes have been made so far over the years. But spoiler, there's a lot. So
yeah.
If you were to do like a Simpsons marathon watch, you'd be there for a while because of all the episodes that have been made. And there was the movie I thought was pretty good when that came out. Was there a second? Was there a second movie? I'm trying to remember if there was or not.
So there were plans to do a second movie, but they never got around to doing it. I don't think Fox financially could afford to do a second movie because they had made a lot of poor decisions, which is why Disney ended up buying them. That being said, with Disney in place, never say never.
I know. Yep. Yeah, you're right. So, I mean, Fox has a track record of treating their shows not very well anyway. So,
right.
But Simpsons has been their franchise ever since franchise show ever since the 90s. I feel like so.
Oh yeah.
They're still. It may not get the press or attention anymore these days, but they definitely still rely upon it. And obviously, the ratings must still be good enough for them to decide to renew the show for 3 more years. So, 4 more years actually. So, but anyway, the voice cast has stayed pretty constant over the years too, which is also pretty impressive. I mean, I except for like a few high profile names.
I mean, at this point, like when the voice actor has, and in most cases, it's been they passed away. They've done a good job of graciously removing them from the show. They haven't tried to replace the voice actors, nothing like that. Some characters have been silenced over the years because of obviously some PC stuff. Rest
one
in
famous
peace,
example I'm thinking of like right now. Yep.
Right.
That one.
Yep. So, I mean, that's why the show's still around. It's been able to evolve over the almost
Simpsons
40
also
years
used to be a lot more. So Simpsons also used to be a lot more edgy and controversial back in the old days than it is now, because it's like, South Park is where the controversy is now these days, but it's like, which South Park's also been around for a long time too, right? It's like,
South Park came out in 1998.
Yeah, so, and animation stays around for a long time for whatever reason, so, but anyway, so it's in that, so, For anybody not our age and younger, you have to remember these games came out during the real mania of Simpsons hype. It's like between 1991 and 1993, a 3-year period, there were 9 video games made for Simpsons across all platforms. 9 in 3 years. Yep. That's how much of a craze that there was. So, and obviously, with that many games being rushed out the door in such a short period of time, the quality of the games is all over the place. Some Simpsons games are very good. The Konami arcade beat 'em up game is still a classic. I think it's still like a very, very fun game to play even nowadays. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then the Simpsons ripoff to Crazy Taxi, whose name I can never remember.
Road Rage.
Road Rage, yeah. It's also like a very fun game. So but then of course you also have the real shovelware titles where it's like they just attach a popular character or license to a game shoved out the door. So the quality. So obviously the quality of these games varies quite a lot. So I know you and I have talked previously, Joe, about the Simpsons NES games. I think they're all right. They're not horrible. You definitely. I mean, like experienced programmers made the game. You Dan Kitchen and whatnot. People from people from Activision back in the day. So
Yeah.
the programming of the games is solid. I think the biggest problem the games have is the fact that you really need a guide to play the game correctly. And it's like in those days you had Nintendo Power and word of mouth, and that was it. So trying to figure out what to do in those games is very abstract and very which is true for many games that time period, but especially the Simpsons games I felt, because it's like okay, what the hell do I do here? It's like the game gives you no help, no direction. Yep. And it's like you could be spending months just going around trying to figure out the same thing over and over and over again. So, I mean, that's the biggest problem with those games, I think. Because otherwise, graphically, music-wise, the games are very good. So, the programming, as I said before, is solid. Controls are a bit wonky, but wonky in cases, but but they're okay. So,
And spoilers, all that transferred over to the SNES.
Well, you and I may disagree as to what extent, but there are some games I think there are some games here that I think are better than others, but we will look at the games in the release order that came out in Super NES, which means the first game came out was Krusty Funhouse, which is probably best described as being like a puzzle video game, very similar to like Lemmings, is the best way I can describe it. So this game has an interesting history. It originally came out. It was originally developed by a company called Audiogenic, which I'm sure nobody here listening to this podcast has ever heard of. Audiogenic was a British company. Well, I should say they're still around today in some form. That goes back to 1985, and they published a lot of like video games back in those days before 1997. Most of their development team was taken over by Codemasters. The company's still around today. But the other thing we do today is just like license out their properties third parties. Yeah. So they're not. So they haven't made any new games since 1997. So they're pretty much unknown here in the States. But they're a very popular company in like the UK and Australia. They're best known like their cricket and rugby games, which explains the European appeal like their games, because those are pretty unheard of sports here in the States. But there is one game, however, that you may have played. Loops, which is a puzzle game like the NES, like among other systems. It was also converted like an arcade game. That was their game. So one of their games was fairly popular here in the West. But anyway, they released a game back in 1991 for the Atari ST and the Amiga and Commodore 64 computers called Rat Trap, which is just basically a big-haired, pink-haired boy. So try saying that 5 times fast. Who guides rats around stage toward a machine by placing blocks or places to exterminate them. Anybody who played Krusty Funhouse would realize right away that sounds awfully familiar. So, that back in the 90s, Acclaim had the rights to make Simpsons games. So they approached Autogenic, about porting this game. Actually, I'm sorry. They were hired by Acclaim to make a Simpsons game, and Autogenic realized that they had this game already, Rat Trap, which they very easily could convert into a Simpsons game without too much effort. So, a single programmer, Douglas Hare, was hired to do the conversion. They basically just added like Simpsons elements, to the game. That's it. So the gameplay is fundamentally the same as it was like in Rat Trap. Simpsons creator Matt Growing did have a little bit of input and say as to the game, because he had to approve all the games which use properties back in those days. Maybe he still does. I don't know. I just know, especially in the 90s, he was actively involved in that stuff. Douglas Hare changed the graphics around a little bit to tweak them more, take more Simpson-ish, like per Matt wanted for the game. So, and so there's new game. So there's new name, Crush's Funhouse. The game got released for multiple systems. It came out also for DOS, Genesis, NES, Game Boy, Game Gear, and Master System. The Super NES version of the game is the only one of those versions which got released in Japan. Curiously enough, we mentioned before that there was some worldwide appeal to Simpsons, so that's kind of reflected here. We've seen which games got released in Japan versus which one didn't. So the Super NES version of the game came out in June 92 for North America, December 92 for Europe, and in January of 1993. So. Anyway, yeah, so like I said, this game is basically just reskinned computer game with sense elements. And the original game itself plays a lot like Lemmings. So I had not played this game previously. Joe, did you play this game previously or previously before the podcast?
Yeah, so I'd played this game previously through emulation for the Super Nintendo.
Okay, all right.
I didn't get any of the Simpsons games growing up because the NES games kind of left a bad taste in my mouth, so I avoided. I avoided most of the games I had. This reflects in one of the games that we covered today, but I had the Itchy and Scratchy mini golf game, which is called Mini Golf Madness, and then I had Bart versus the Juggernauts for the Game Boy. Both of those are Game Boy games, so those were kind of where I had my Simpsons experience outside of Bart versus the World, Bart versus the Space Mutants, and Krusty's Funhouse for the NES.
Okay,
which pretty much plays the same.
Yeah, it does. So anyway, since you have some experience with the game, do you want to talk about the gameplay a little bit?
Yeah. So I mean, you hit the head right on the head. Like, this is a Lemmings
It's not a complicated game.
So you have to basically direct the rats into the rat trap, and obviously you score points based on how many rats you're able to trap. It's a puzzle platformer. There's not really much else to say. It is literally Lemmings. The only knock I have on this game is that Lemmings has a option to speed up, the thing. So if you got, everything you got to do in the puzzle aspect to get them to the trap, in Lemmings, there's a button where you can just fast forward and they just kind of make their way to the trap and that's it. Here, there's no speed up, so it can take quite a while to get through some of the levels. Other than that, I mean, it's a good game. Yeah, there's repetitive gameplay, but it all depends on if you like this type of game. If you like puzzle platformers, you might not mind the repetitiveness. But for me, I was able to play through a couple levels, no problem. It did kind of wear on me because I was just like another level, just doing. I back in the day, I was big into these games, so I was excited to play this for the original NES. I loved Lemmings. It was one of the first games I got when I got my first PC. But today, I don't know, maybe I just don't have the patience for it.
Understandably, my thoughts of the game were very, very close to yours. I thought the game was fine, but it's definitely more. It's definitely more slow paced. Yeah. So. I can tell the game was not a Simpsons game originally because Simpsons elements did feel very dropped in. They're fine, but they don't really add to the game in any meaningful way, I thought.
Right.
So
yeah.
I'm sure the Simpsons reskinning did help sales. But like I said, there was just that. Like I said, there was Simpsons mania during this time period. So just a mad crush to get games out there to people. So, yep. Anyway, there is one curious note about this game. However, there was a revision of the game for the Super NES Genesis. Later on in production life, version 1.1 is called. Version 1.1 uses new music for the second and fourth world. Why, I don't know. If I had to guess, I'd say licensing issue.
Right, I was going to say, this must have been some licensing deal.
So, I don't know what version I played. I couldn't find online clear comparison between the two versions. So, I mean that's the only change they made apparently. So I guess it really doesn't matter. So when the game came out, the game got pretty good reviews. I mean, like I wouldn't say like great reviews, but saw reviews. Mean Machines gave the Super NES version a 90%. Superplay gave it 79%. Entertainment, and that's it for and that was it for the Super NES only version of the game. The other version of the game clocked in around like 83 to 96. So like pretty good marks.
Yeah.
But yeah, puzzle games like this were also very popular during the time period, which I'm also very sure helped with it. But nowadays, I agree with you, Joe. I think this game is nice to look at. But unless you're like a diehard Simpsons fan and also a diehard puzzle game fan, I really don't think there's enough here to warrant playing this game nowadays because there are better games like this out there in the market. It's just not the game's fault necessarily. It's not the game's fault. It was just a reskinned older game that is like that was a cash grab. But there's just better puzzle games in the market these days.
Yeah, and you know what? Spoiler, but like for me, this was the best of the 4 games that we'd covered.
Really?
So that's not saying much going forward, but yeah.
If I rank this game out of the 4, I'd probably say this is like second favorite for me. I mean, it's a fine puzzle game. It's not horrible. The original game is like very solid, so it helps. It helps the original game is solid. Just that the slow pace. I think the slow pace combined with the fact that the Simpsons elements don't really add to the game like in kind of meaningful way. I think kind of hurt the overall game. Hurt the overall gameplay. So we will cover cheat codes and eBay pricing for all these games toward the end. But spoiler: all these games sold pretty well, so they're all fairly cheap to get these days.
Yeah.
The next game released was Simpsons Bart's Nightmare, which was the first originally designed game for the 16-bit systems. It came out for both Super NES and Genesis. Super NES version came first, October 1992 in North America, Europe and Japan in January of 93. Genesis did not get the game until August in North America and Europe. No Japan for the Genesis version of the game. So again, Super NES version of the game is released in Japan only. I think maybe because Super NES was just a more popular system, Japan during this time period. But Sculpture Software developed this game. We've already talked about them before in past podcasts. I won't spend too much time about them. So this is it's kind of a spiritual sequel to the NES games, although not really. It does have some DNA in common with the earlier games, but they were trying to they're trying to take advantage of the 16-bit power to make for a bigger, better game world here to put put Bart Company into. So the game's pretty much divided into 2 parts. The premise here is that Bart stayed up late one night working on homework because, of course, he's doing badly in school. That's a running theme like the show in the franchise. So he falls asleep and he has a nightmare where it's like he has to recover the pages of his homework, which got around the town with TVs and fairies, Sims of characters and stuff, alternately trying to aid and or hinder him depending on the situation. So if you find a page, you can jump onto it, and that takes you to a mini game. There are 5 mini games altogether in the game. You're able to choose 1 and 2 randomly games. At any time. So. Those games are the first game. The green door is Bartzilla, which is the like what Bart has to fight against Homer, Kong, and Mothra, which is a nice reference to the Godzilla and King Kong franchises. Again, those characters and ideas that comes right out of the show. So, the yellow door is a bloodstream, kind of an amazing journey, kind of like a inspired game. So. Yellow door is Itchy and Scratchy, kind of like a spin-off. The blue door is a Bartman spin-off, where you get to play with Bartman like for a short time. And the orange door is Idaho Simpsons, a character who honestly do not remember, honestly. So you're playing through that to do that. So and then when you succeed or fail enough during the game, the game will eventually come to an end, and you get ending ending scene will depend upon your overall performance, which in turn impacts Bart's score, and you go from an F to an A. So nice touch in the ending, I thought, where it's like Lisa always puts you down and mocks you regardless of the grade you get, unless you get an A, and which is just like. Stop the war. I want to get off. Kind of like disbelief. The fact has such a great score. The two parts of the game I thought overall worked pretty well together. The overall world is just the overall world looks very, it sounds very nice. It has a very like Simpsons graphical style to it. It kind of there are locations of people and things here that you recognize in the show, whatever. Nice tie-ins. The mini games are really just like arcade games. So. I think developers are trying not to do the same NES formula, which was like just a straight world the entire way through. And I think adding a mini game was a fun idea. For me, I thought it worked pretty well. I thought I thought the game was pretty well balanced between world and mini games. Was the part great? No, but I thought the addition of those things together. Made for a fairly fun game. I mean, I certainly, I think I would enjoy this like it first came out. It's not horrible. I think it's better than most. Honestly, I think it's better than the NES games, to be honest with you. But the actual replayability, the actual like replay value of this game, especially once you master the mini games, is pretty limited. However, so. What were your thoughts like this one, Joe?
Yeah, so I like the hub world. I like the idea of the hub world, the windy streets of Springfield. Like typical platformer, everything wants to kill you. Your life is your Z's, so clearly you're sleeping. So Z's are your life bar. In the hub world, you can abuse the hub world, doing numerous different things, including jumping over a basketball and then riding a skateboard for a certain amount of time, and you'll end up gaining more Z's. That is pivotal in this game. It definitely makes it so that you can kind of cheese it, for sure. The mini games are pretty good. The Bartzilla one is just kind of meh, in my opinion. Walk to the right, shoot things, punch things, and then you climb like the Empire State Building. And then if, Mothra or Marjora flies by and hits you, as long as you don't fall past the screen, you'll attach to the building and you can still keep climbing to get to Homer Kong, which was, fun. But the two I liked the most was there's like a beat 'em up style inside the Simpsons house with Itchy and Scratchy. That I thought was a pretty good mini game, and I thought the Bartman shoot 'em up section was actually really good too. The other two I could, they're try to avoid those. Anyways, and I felt like to be able to get an A, you have to get 125,000 points, which sounds like a lot, but then when you actually play the game, you realize it's really not a lot. It's basically, just do well enough in the mini games and you should be able to get that A and beat the game. The graphics are great. The graphics, this will be a theme throughout the rest of these games. I love the graphics. They did such a good job capturing the cartoon spirit. with not only this game, but the two following games we're going to talk about as well. Something felt off with Krusty's Funhouse, and then when I found out it was a reskin, it made total sense to me. Because it does feel lazy, especially when you put it up to these three games. So yeah, I love the graphics. I think they're well detailed. They're colorful. It literally looks like The Simpsons leapt off of the Fox network onto the Super Nintendo. Really good. Biggest issue I had with this game is the controls. The controls can be unruly at times. And also,
can be, yeah.
Yeah, and also the music is kind of Like, I expected a little bit more out of the music, but it is what it is. But music is so important to a platformer because it's going to be what motivates you to keep going. And it just, I don't know, for me, it was kind of vanilla and just kind of But everything else, really good presentation for the most part. I didn't hate this, so that's a plus.
Yeah, I'd probably say this is my third favorite. My third favorite. Like the four games of the carbon here. I mean,
Okay,
it's fine. It's fine, small doses. Like if you're a Simpsons fan, I think a Simpsons fan, especially if you were turned off by the entries, which like balls hard. That's another thing. This game is as Joe said, it's actually fairly easy. I thought. As a matter of fact, I thought it could be like a bit harder, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But, which is something that I think that the later game addressed, which we'll get into in a moment. But yeah. So I mean, graphically the game looks great. It plays okay when you get used to the controls. I think if you're a Simpsons fan, this is worth checking out. I think it's not horrible, but
yeah.
It's what it is. So, I mean, it didn't feel like a cash grab. Scotch Software was experienced to an experienced programmer, experienced team. They knew what they were doing. So the game, I'm sure the game was rushed, but but definitely felt the game had some quality to it, which is more than I could say for some other games.
Yeah, agreed.
So anyway, this was followed up 2 years later, in 1994, by by a spiritual sequel called Virtual Bart. Because another big craze in the 90s was virtual reality. People back then thought we were going to get into it a lot sooner than we actually have. So that's a whole different, podcast discussion that we could get into. So I'm sure that, so I'm sure Sculpture Software thought that, combining Simpsons with VR, which is two very hot topics at the time, would be a smash hit for them. So this game came out first to Super NES in September 94. Genesis followed a month later. The game also got released in Europe for both systems. No Japan release for this game at all. They decided, feedback, I guess. Oh, I forgot to mention here about Bart's Nightmare. Reviews of that game are over the, sorry, let me back up for a moment. So reviews for Bart's Nightmare were kind of all over the place. It was very surprising to see exactly how much of a difference there was between people's opinions about the game. Just give some examples. Super NES. Computer video games gave it a 90 out of 100. GameZone gave it 80 out of 100. Nintendo Power gave it 15 out of 20. Superplay gave it 91%. But Toto gave the Super NES version of the game 53%. So, and another magazine, Mega, trashed the Genesis version of the game with a whopping 35%. So, really, very wide range of scores here for this game. So, generally speaking, though, the game reviewed very well when it came out. So, with the main pros and cons we already mentioned, graphics are great, playability is limited, and it's not as the gameplay is not as deep as the graphics might suggest. So, so another game that reviewed pretty well for the most part, with some very outlier examples. So anyway, with the next game, Virtual Bar, they decided just to scrap the overworld, the overall theme altogether, and just make it a compilation of mini games. The story premise for this one, to tie everything together, is that there's a science fair. Barton invented a virtual reality device. Bart, of course, manages to get the device to malfunction when he tries it out, and so he has to complete all 6 programs to escape. So, and if you depending upon if you succeed or not, makes a small difference to the ending as well. So, I always appreciate when games have a small difference endings like that.
Yeah.
Depending on how you did in the game, whatnot. So, anyway, I'm going to give my voice a rest here for a second, Joe, if you don't mind. Do you want to talk about the minigames that this one has?
Yeah. So, Virtual Bart is essentially an upgrade to Bart's Nightmare. We got rid of the hub world, which is kind of disappointing. And Bart is just a spinning child that lands on whatever minigame we're going to play randomly. This game does do some cool upgrades. I really like the fact that we get cutscenes before every minigame. And then you get kind of cutscenes after, whether you succeed or fail. And the humor really shines through in this game. I thought they did a really good job with that. Like the previous title, these minigames for the most part are kind of trash. There's nothing deep here. Why they never did a full-on beat-em-up. I understand Konami had the rights to the arcade game, but I find it hard to believe that they couldn't have done, something that was still a side-scrolling beat-em-up and not...
There might have been a licensing issue. There might have, there might have just been the developers are like, we don't want to associate with that too. Playing in form. I mean, who knows?
Yeah. So this one is much like the same. Great graphics. I think the graphics are fantastic. Like I said, with the addition of the cutscenes, it makes it that much nicer. Music is still controls still feel floaty. The water slide minigame, I think, is probably one of the best ones that are on this thing. And that's on
Splash Mori. Okay,
yeah, and that's not really saying much. I didn't catch the name of the other minigames, but there's Dino Bart with the Dino Bart, Bart's dinosaur. Oh yes.
Dinosaur running around primitive.
Yes.
Springfield.
Yeah.
There's Baby Bart, he has to try to skip his home and try to chase down an ice cream truck.
Yeah.
Which is very cute. Pig Bart, where Bart's a pig and he has to escape the Krusty's pork factory and also lead a revolt. Class Picture, where he's throwing tomatoes to ruin the picture day at his school. Mount Splashmore, as George already mentioned, water slide, and Doomsday Bart, where we're Springfield's in a public wasteland because the nuclear plant exploded, and you have to fire on a motorcycle. I actually enjoyed this game the best at the 4 games, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I think the mini games were I think the mini games were step up to the ones that were in a Bart's Nightmare. I think most of them were pretty good. I thought I really loved the cuteness. I really loved they really were integrated very well with Simpsons. All the characters, all the references, all the elements present. They really went deep on some of these. In fact, some of the cuts were so deep. I'm like, what's going on here? And then I had to look it up, going okay, I remember sharing Terry now. Okay, So, are they great on their own? No, but I think together. I think the one pack, it's not bad. The replay value of all these games, I think, is limited. So this is not a game. So this is not a game to be playing for hours upon hours. None of these Simpsons games are that deep, to be honest with you. But the mini games definitely felt upgraded compared to the ones that were in Bart's Nightmare. And while also missed the overall map. I think the extra space and time given to the developers because they decided to cut that out. They put a good application with these mini games.
Yeah.
I actually enjoyed playing these mini games, which I'm more say for some of the other mini games from some of the games here in this podcast episode tonight. So
I agree, and this is number 2 for me for sure.
Okay.
It's definitely over Bart's Nightmare. I agree. Like, the minigames are better here. The floaty controls kind of, I mean,
They work most of the minigames.
Right. They work. But there was also
Splash More is Splash More is the issue I had. Splash More is where the controls really hurt the game the most, I thought, because it's like you require very like pinpoint controls to do that game successfully. But
yeah.
Most of them, they're fine.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like when you're Dino Bart and trying to get some of those platforms. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's like it's trying to be a platformer, but like the controls kind of fight you. It's just, I don't know. Poor experience. But anyways, yeah. I mean, other than that, honestly, the upgrade to having the cutscenes with the graphics and everything else, honestly, that it outshines some of the crap controls that you're going to deal with, and I definitely would recommend this.
Yeah. So, same. And the game reviewed. The game got very mixed reviews though when it came out. Again, the scores were all over the place. More tending toward negative this time around. I think maybe
Simpsons burnout.
Part of that could be also the controls mentioned a lot.
Yeah.
Which I agree. The controls were okay. I didn't hate the controls. I mean, both the controls both for this game and First Time were not great. But you're used to them after a while, which is the best I can say about it.
Yeah.
So, M Games gave Super NES version of the game 67%. Total gave it a whopping low 39%.
Wow.
Electronic Games gave it however, gave it a B+. Super Gamer gave it to 78%. So again, very mixed scores, more tending toward negative, but not terrible scores.
Yeah.
So, however, the game with the worst scores across the board, and probably one, I think the one just by process of elimination, the one that we probably liked the least was the last game that came on Super NES, the Itchy and Scratchy game, which came out Super NES and Game Gear in March 95. A Genesis version of the game was made and was finished, but was never released. Why, I don't know. Maybe. They probably, obviously companies want to release games, but they finish all the work in making it. But maybe just the fact Super NES version of the game didn't sell. Didn't review great.
Yeah. Or
the fact of how late it was, late 95, may have been factors in that decision. You can find. You can find Genesis ROM of this game floating around online.
Yeah.
Like I said, it is complete. It is playable. It just never got released. So, but the Game Gear version of the game did come out. So this was developed. This game was developed by a different company called Bit Studio. They are again a British video game developer. Most of their games did not come out in the States. Most of their stuff was for other platforms and or like different countries in the world. Look at this list of Super NES games. I don't think we've covered any. Okay. I think we have covered one game briefly. Remember that episode we did recently, Joe, where we looked at a number of historically, quote unquote, bad Super NES games where they covered a bunch of them in one episode.
Yep.
I believe Gun Force was one of the games covered that episode.
Oh, okay.
The Contra shooter. That was a Bit Studio game. I actually liked that game. I actually thought that game. I remember saying at the time that I thought Gun Force was an okay Contra clone. So that's one game that they did. One game that they made. The other games they did the Super NES they made. I'm sure we haven't covered yet. Space Football. Last Action Hero, Dream TV, Wolverine, Genocide 2, and I think that's it for Super NES games. So we will be covering some of those games later on down the road, I'm sure, because some of them are attached to pretty big properties. But anyway. The games were published by Acclaim because Acclaim was that still had the license to Simpsons games all through the 90s. So this is a kind of return to the roots in the sense it's a side-scrolling platformer game like the earlier NES games, based upon the Itchy and Scratchy show, which is a show within a show in The Simpsons. Itchy and Scratchy by itself is like really just a parody of the Tom and Jerry, except that there's a lot more over the top violence and gore and whatnot in these episodes. So basically, you're playing with Itchy, just trying to do as much damage to Scratchy as possible as you go through the game. Like attacking Scratchy, attacking various enemies, picking up weapons, items. Once you get Scratchy's health down to 0, there's a boss battle. Win, you move on. So. Despite the game being very violently graphic, the game did get a KA kids or adult rating on it. So
of course it did.
Yeah, so go figure. But the Super NES version of the game, however, does have something that's censored. However, compared to the NES Genesis version of the game, because Nintendo was being Nintendo, of course.
Right.
But so anyway. I actually had played this game a little bit back in the day. I did play a little bit of so I played a little bit of Bar's Nightmare, a little bit of Itchy and Scratchy back when both games were new. I think I did them at like friend's house or a game show or something like that, or something like that. But that's the extent of me playing it until now, the podcast. It's definitely not good. There's numerous reasons why I think the game is just kind of very meh. But why don't you talk about the game some first, Joe, and then I can add up on your thoughts as far as that.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna add on to what you're talking about because I have the same sentiment. Pretty much once you play the first level and you beat Scratchy once, it's rinse and repeat for the rest of the game. So pretty much you've got the entire game in that first level. So then it's just even more repetitive than what Krusty's Funhouse was. Obviously the graphics are the standout here for this game. The detailed sprites are amazing. It's very faithful to the source material. Again, music's not all that great, but the rest of the presentation
where's the theme
is,
song? The theme song's so good for this. Like, where is it?
So, part of my disappointment came when I realized that anybody who's faithful listener of the podcast knows that we kind of teased this game at the end of last episode, and I was talking about the mini golf mechanic, and realized real quick that was the Game Boy game that I grew up with and not this game. So, man, do I wish we played the mini golf game. But anyways, so the Game Boy game's kind of like this. Like, you're Itchy and you're trying to kill Scratchy, but also, like, you have to play golf at the same time. So there's a bit of an extra mechanic there. Here, it's just kill Scratchy. This felt like an upgraded version of Spy vs. Spy for the NES. Talk about a deep cut. I don't even know how many people even remember Spy vs. Spy.
I played the original version of that game that came back on computers back in the day.
Yeah, so I mean, that is exactly what this game felt like, and that's not necessarily a good thing. This one felt more than anything else kind of like a cash grab. This one more than any of the others. I wish I could say more nice things about it, but I really can't.
The best thing, no, I agree with you. I mean, the positive things I can say about this game is the graphics. The graphics are very good.
Yep.
The animations of Itchy and Scratchy and some of the death animations that they do and whatever are very nice. Yep. Very nice. They carried over. The show very well. I thought the sound and music also was fine. It's like, the theme song missing really hurts. I thought that. For what was here, the music and sound was okay. It's like, so numerous problems. It's like we were talking about. So Joe and I already mentioned most of them, but if you want to talk about a Simpsons game like a bad controls.
Yeah,
this one takes the cake.
Yeah.
the controls are terrible in this game. So it's like, I don't think, so it's like, and reviews of this game when it came out were also just as negative. As one of the reviews you mentioned, there's a reason Itchy and Scratchy only they only call it the Itchy and Scratchy. They only occupies like a minute of Simpsons episode. Beyond that point, it gets stale. It's like the whole game based around this just gets boring after a while. It's like it was like you said, Joe. The first stage is fun. It's fun, and then you're like, okay, what else is there to play? But,
right.
Just that the formula. Again, the formula works very well in small doses, and that's it. It's just like making a whole game like this. The Itchy and Scratchy mini game in Bart's Nightmare was the better way to do this, I thought.
Yes.
Because that was that was like pretty good the mini game the overall. So, but yeah, it's like poor control, like easy gameplay, very repetitious. Like there's no jumping attacks. And the Game Gear version got blasted even worse because they're worse because they had to remove some stuff to make it fit in the Game Gear. Yeah. It also made it that hurt even worse than what the Super NES version was. So just not fun. Probably not the worst Simpsons game ever played, but definitely down toward the bottom. The bottom five like that category. Just like
for sure,
not good at all.
Yep.
But so. And then after the Simpsons games, come up the later systems, the 32-bit systems, and it goes on from there. I didn't even count to see how many Simpsons games have been released over the years. Probably a ton. I should probably let me look that up real quick. Do you have any final thoughts about the game?
No, I mean, ultimately, all 4 games are something to experience on the Super Nintendo. Do I suggest you run out and buy the games? Yeah, if you're a collector, you're probably going to want them, and they're probably cheap enough. As Greg said, these sold millions and millions of copies. That being said, if you're looking for just like some fun gameplay, I'm going to direct you towards like the DOS version of the Konami beat 'em up, or something on like the Game Boy, like Itchy and Scratchy, Mini Golf Madness. Like that was actually really fun. I remember having a blast with that. So
I don't know if it's still available on there. Side note, but I do. I know at one time the Simpsons arcade game was available on PlayStation Network. I'm not sure if it still is, but I know. But I know at one point it was on there for play.
Oh, okay.
Like I said, I have no idea if it's still there or not.
Yeah.
But I do remember seeing it there at one point. But anyway, so there are 27 official video games.
That sounds about right. Okay.
Simpsons tie-ins that have come out since the arcade game was the first Simpsons game, believe it or not.
Oh, okay.
So 1991. So the newest game actually was. The newest game appears to be a mobile game called Tapped Out, which came out in which came out all the way back in 2012.
That died this past January.
Yeah. So it's been a long time since any other Simpsons games have been. The Simpsons games have come out. The Simpsons arcade game got released recently by arcade went up. A standalone machine, but as far as like new games goes, Tapped Out was the last one.
Yeah.
The last console game was actually the Simpsons game for the PS2, PS3, Xbox 360, and Wii back in 2007. So it's been a while.
Yeah. And that was to promote the movie. So
the movie, yes, yeah. So it's like you like I said, 9 of these games came out. The 9 of these games came out during the 9 of these games came out during a 3-year period. So a lot of popularity like out of the gates, and Simpsons really was huge. So anyway, so we already mentioned how bad Itchy and Scratchy was in reviews. Some of its reviews. So I think that's enough for that. So moving on here, there are some secrets, cheat codes for each game. I'll go over them quickly. Bart's Nightmare has a way to get extra lives in the Itchy and Scratchy minigame. And you can also get Bart to ride a skateboard faster by jumping over a basketball like in the main area. So just a small programming quirk there. Flex where that game goes. Courtesy Funhouse has passwords only, so not really anything to speak of there as far as codes. Virtual Bart has a debug code you can use to enter the code into debug mode. We can do a whole bunch of things like free movement mode, skip stages, give yourself extra like move coordinates around, that kind of stuff. So a lot of fun stuff. Fun stuff you can do in debug mode. There's also sound test and title screen code you can also use for title screen codes. Give you things like beating a stage immediately, slow movement, extra lives, that kind of stuff. So, and each Stretch game surprisingly has nothing at all for that. So. It was a little bit hard doing research for these games on eBay due to the fact that all these games released for multiple consoles and in multiple countries. So I've done the best I can. I cannot promise these numbers are 100% accurate, but I believe they are at least very close to what I was seeing on eBay as me doing research on these games recently. So as I said before, most of these games, let's just say, are very commonly available. Bart's Nightmare had 100 copies listed of Super NES online. 90 copies of the game is sold recently. Crisis Funhouse had 71 copies listed with 53 sold recently. Virtual Bart and Ninja Scratch are a little bit harder to find maybe because these were later Super NES releases. Virtual Bart 26 copies listed, 31 copies sold recently, and Ninja Scratch 18 copies listed recently. With 10 copies having sold recently. So, but the pricing for all these games is pretty cheap by Super NES standards, I thought. For all the games, honestly, you can get the cart only anywhere from $13 all the way up to $60. All the way up to $65. So, and that's for all 4 games by themselves. So,
yeah, that's not too bad.
Not bad. Yeah, not bad pricing. CIB for Bart's Nightmare and Crazy Fun House, as mentioned before, is cheaper because those games apparently still better. $46 to $160 for Bart's Nightmare CIB. Crazy Fun House anywhere from $50 to $128. Virtual Bart ranges anywhere from $115 to $220, and Agent actually is the most $190 to $259 for CIB copies sold recently. So yeah, pretty common cheap games to find usually. Unless you want to get CIB for Virtual Bart and Vintage Scratchy, then you could pay a bit more for those, but but pretty good pricing, I thought.
To be fair, that box art for Itchy and Scratchy, even though it's a bad game, is pretty good.
It is pretty good, yes. Actually, the bar. Actually, I really like the box art for Bart's Nightmare too. A lot. Virtual Bart and Crazy Fun House they're all right. But they get the job done. But anyway, so that's the Simpsons games. Very interesting book. Been a franchise that's still around today. So we can't say that we can't say that too often for games to cover here on this podcast. Yeah. But it was fun to give these games a look. So I think covering all 4 of these games together at once was a good idea because none of these games are particularly deep enough to really warrant their own episode, I thought. But because all of them are basically mini games and puzzle games all stitched together to make a full game. So I'm kind of glad that, although we had, I think I had Itchy and Scratchy in there in our worst games pile. I'm kind of glad that you kind of pulled that out and was like, we'll just do all the Simpsons games. Because, that game's bad and it definitely deserved to be part of that episode, but also, it's better to just lump all these games together, talk about them, and see the quality across all 4. Right. Yes. Yep. And even Itchy and Scratchy, as bad as it is, does have a couple of redeeming qualities to it. So,
right.
like I said before, if the game was 2-player, if the game allowed you the game allowed you to have HG player 1 scratch player 2. That that really would have helped, I thought.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But sadly, that wasn't to be. So,
what are you gonna do?
Anyway, yeah, I know. So, as always, we appreciate you tuning in to us. You can find us on Facebook, or you can send me an email directly to the SNESpodcast@yahoo.com. Joe, where can they reach you at?
You can find me on my very public, not family-friendly Facebook at Joe Koppel. And then, of course, you can find me on Twitter at JOESUX30. I do the Radical Retro Roundup. Those archives are up. Still haven't got around to recording that new episode.
Well, yeah, but it happens.
We're getting there.
Yeah, so... anyway, next time on the podcast, we're covering another multiple game podcast for you folks. Not as bad as this one is. There's 2 games at this time, but again, we decided that it would make sense, and it makes sense to stitch together the 2 Flintstone games, Super NES. So we're going to be covering those games next. Spoiler: I've not played either one of either game before. So
neither have I.
I have some experience. I have some experience with the NES games.
Yes,
but not in the later ones.
Yeah.
So one of the NES games is also known for being one of the most stupidly expensive games on the system too.
Yeah.
I don't remember the name, which one that is right now, but yeah,
Paradise Island. Dino Paradise Island or something like that.
That sounds right.
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah. So.
I don't know.
Anyway.
But yeah, so one of the 2 Flintstone games for the SNES is based on the movie, so that should be interesting. True. So
no. I have not seen the movie since it first came out. Maybe it's due for like a rewatch.
I will not torture myself with that. But you can watch it. I mean, it's not horrible. It's not horrible.
Yeah. They made a sequel too, right?
They did make a sequel. That is horrible.
Yeah, I never saw the sequel. I'm like,
yeah.
So I'm like, nah, the first one's enough for me. But
yeah, no. Viva Rock Vegas. Yeah.
But
all set.
Yeah. Well, we will talk. We will talk more about that next time. Yeah. So. Anyway, as always, thank you for giving us some of your day. Thank you, Joe, as always, for being here. Stay safe, everybody. Be well. We'll catch you again next time.
Bye.
Nintendo controls 80% of the video market. But no matter how you play the game, or which game you play, things definitely have come a long way since Pac-Man.
Now you're playing with power. Super power.